It's a capacity crowd here at Arrowhead Stadium. You know, one thing I've learned in life is if you're thinking about why you're doing something, you get sometimes, if you're in the right place, that if you help one person change, I'm going to get emotional because that's just who I am. One person change, you can change the world. So with that, it's kicking goals, but I feel a little bit remiss in not clarifying that I was a legislative aide in the United States Senate for 4 U.S. senators before I made it. I gave up a job working for Senator Robert Packwood of Oregon, working on aviation safety. I'll tell you about aviation seat safety sometime. And I grew up in a very different environment. My mother was in the first full class of women at Oxford, and she spoke literally the best German in England, and that will make sense in a second. My father was very senior CIA, so senior that he didn't tell me till after he died. I found out that he was chief of station for the CIA in London. He was an expert on Russia. He was an expert on disinformation. He was an expert on the war, the battle against, frankly, evil and those that would knock down democracies that are genuinely respecting the rights of human beings. So I'm here today to talk about Project Max and how I got here with my friend Eric Rubin, who founded it, and a bunch of NFL players and NBA players. I'm here to talk about finding dignity for all human beings, which is, I think, what we really all agree on. Don't we? I hope. So first thing is my mother, I didn't know till 5 years ago. My mother was keeping a secret from all of her children, which is that she was sent as a member of the Women's Intelligence Unit of the Women's Royal Navy in England to document the death camps before the end of the war. And anybody that reads the end of the war knows about General Eisenhower and how devastated he was, that he believed his notion of evil itself changed, even though he'd seen the worst things that human beings can do to each other in war, to see it at Dachau and see it at the death camps. And you might know and remember that he asked and required all the village people that pretended that they didn't know what was going on, just like all those people right now that are pretending that they don't know what's going on, to go to the death camp and be escorted so that they could not refuse to believe and accept that it had happened. And the story I heard about my mother is that for a year after documenting the death camps, and ironically, Dachau is near Munich, where I ended up being born. Sorry. She was sent to present those films and photos in London for a year and a half. And she was devastated by the same thing we confront today, which is so many people with photos, with films, refusing to believe that it was really happening, just like October 7th. So that's my first introduction is, I feel like I'm destined to be here for so many reasons. I mean, who grows up next door to Supreme Court Justice Byron Whizzer White? Anybody hear of him? Well, you should have, because he was best friends with John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, because he was a Rhodes Scholar after a phenomenal football career, finished #1 at Yale Law School the same year Justice Byron White led the National Football League in rushing. He led the NFL in rushing twice, with Detroit and with Pittsburgh. And if you think about and study history, because a lot of this to me is about seeing the patterns of history, the lessons of history that Churchill warned us about going into World War II, that so many today warn us about with these inexorable movements of misinformation and hatred. I believe that these are parallel times. And as I look out at the football fields that we fill with stadiums, we have so many people that refuse to pay attention and to find what's really going on. I feel destined because of that example of the Kennedys and the notion of Camelot in history, the idea there is a best and brightest to aspire to, and the idea that there is dignity for all people. So another reason I feel destined to be here is the process of making it in the NFL, because more than anything, I believe the Jewish people are the most resilient, most persistent, most full of backbone and courage that you can imagine. And persistence is what all of us need. And I had to learn persistence by being rejected by 8 teams 11 times. Told I wasn't good enough 8 teams 11 times. In fact, my friends from Philadelphia, I didn't tell you this, but I tried to try out with the Philadelphia Eagles, and they kicked me out. But those processes of being rejected, of coming back, of being rejected and coming back, being rejected and coming back, those build in us what we really believe in, what we will not give up on. And this is that moment for all of us for Project Max, which is dedicated to ending racism, anti-Semitism, hate, intolerance through sport. It is the same thing. We have to change the direction of society. And those rejections are the best thing that ever happened to me. I went on to be the most accurate kicker in NFL history. I went on to beat out the greatest kicker in the history of the NFL. And I believe those 2 years of rejections made me stronger, made me better, made me stand up, and made me see that persistence is everything. And courage, as my hero, Winston Churchill, would say, is the most important of all the qualities. Today, I work with homeless people in a program called Champions for the Homeless. We put a human face on the homeless in a way that's not existing in New York, not existing in California, not existing in major cities. And we do one thing. We believe that every single person has their own journey. We believe that every volunteer should look a homeless person in the eye with respect, with dignity, and say, I see you, I hear you, tell me your story. And we have brought a level of humanity to the homeless in Phoenix that doesn't exist in many other places. You heard that from Oprah, I know, but it is such a powerful, simple lesson that humanity has to learn again. So, 2.5 years ago, don't ask me why, Christians United for Israel invited me with a guy named Sean Alexander, who was the most valuable player in the NFL, 28 touchdowns, I think, for the Seattle Seahawks in 2005. And Jay Feely, another kicker, wonderful man running for Congress now. We need him in Congress. To go to Poland to escort 100 Ukrainian Jewish refugees to Israel. And we were given intense education about the Holocaust in Krakow, in Warsaw, at Auschwitz, at Birkenau. And it was one of those classic days in mid-March. The photos really are the same as what we experienced. Dark, cloudy, cold. Whew. Incredible. All those empty fire stacks, the cabins that had been burned down as the Nazis tried to hide what they'd done. And you do know the last few weeks of the Holocaust, they doubled the numbers, right? Instead of saying, we know we're going to lose, let's get out of here, they actually turned up the heat literally to kill as many people as they could. There is a level of evil that we are standing against. I'm not preaching to the choir, but it requires a team, like in sports, that knows each other, that respects each other, that works together. So Project Max was started from that with Eric Rubin, who said, you know, we can do something with sport, with the NBA players, like you'll see tomorrow. I hope you'll come, 3:45 tomorrow, with Eddie Curry and the world champion from 2019. I got to pronounce his name. Sagi Muki. That's a great name. Sounds like he's Japanese. And the Iranian world champion as the example of where we're going, right? I mean, I know you're hearing these things again and again, but I hope that it penetrates at a different place coming from me and as a Christian, that we are unified as human beings. I've been chairman of the American Indian Education Foundation for the same reason. American Indians feel homeless, feel rootless, until, as kids, we speak to them just very simply, look them in the eye and say, I see you, I hear you, I respect you. You can have a life of real meaning and contribution. My father's mentor as a Fulbright scholar was Arnold Toynbee. How many people have heard of Arnold Toynbee? So few have. I'm glad you have. Probably the greatest, this is not hyperbole, probably the greatest historian of the 20th century. He wrote a tiny little work for 30 years, from 1932 to 1962, called A Study of History. And he had one theory as he looked at the 21 great civilizations, which was challenge and response. We measure great civilizations, who we are collectively, by our ability to embrace challenge and to respond with courage and with creativity. That's who we are today. And that's really what will separate us and allow us to survive and thrive past this horrendous era of misinformation. So I just want to leave you with an interesting lesson from Champions for the Homeless, which is a simple message. There's no difference between the giver and the receiver. And all of you are givers, all of you. You've got a children's book. I know all of you have great stories of what you're doing. You're all over the world doing great things, but everybody, as you are coordinating, your family is doing great things. Maybe we're going to do more with high schools. But to me, there's no difference. And when you realize there's no difference between the giver and the receiver, that fills up your soul, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, frankly, whether you're Muslim or any other soulful journey in life to what really matters, what never disappears. So I wanted to share that with you and say that this work has been such a blessing to go and to be baptized as I was on New Year's Day in the Sea of Galilee. Who's been to the Sea of Galilee? That water is the most precious, soft, perfect water. And I hope that we channel that sense of unity and courage, because if we don't unite as Christians and Jews, and frankly, as Muslims that realize they still have to think for themselves and care about the dignity of all human beings, which didn't happen at Kfar Aza, didn't happen at the Nova Film Festival, if we don't learn that lesson, and if we don't do it, no one else will. Are you with me? So God bless you. The NFL is slowly coming around. I thank you for the opportunity to do this, but all of us can do one thing, whether they're 10,000 people, 80,000 people at Arrowhead Stadium, or you today, one person at a time, convince them with your heart, with your actions, with your soul. God bless you. Thank you.